Have you ever wondered how the current state of fuel prices worldwide is affecting our daily lives? Right now, the world is grappling with a surge in fuel prices, a puzzle that is affecting every facet of our daily lives, from the cost of our morning coffee to the price of a plane ticket. The shockwaves of this price hike are far-reaching, but what are the pieces that make up this global fuel puzzle? At the heart of the matter are geopolitical tensions and conflicts, which often have a direct impact on oil-producing countries. For instance, the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza are not just political or humanitarian issues. They have a ripple effect on the global economy, disturbing oil supplies and, in turn, pushing up fuel prices. This increase in fuel prices isn't simply about paying a few extra coins at the pump. It's a domino effect that trickles down to affect various sectors. For example, the rise in fuel prices leads to a surge in transportation costs, which then impacts the cost of goods. The price of your favorite fruit, the cost of your online deliveries, even the price of sacrificial animals during the Eid al-Adha festival in Arab countries, all are influenced by these rising fuel prices. So you see, the global fuel puzzle isn't just about oil-producing countries or those directly involved in geopolitical conflicts. It's about all of us. Whether we're in the United States, dealing with a potential recession and inflation, or in Kenya, grappling with high fuel prices and its impact on daily living, this is a puzzle we are all trying to solve. Now, let's delve deeper into the events that have led to this surge in fuel prices. Let's take a step back in time and understand how the events unfolded. Starting with Ukraine, where a conflict sparked a chain reaction of economic consequences. The war disrupted the supply of animal feed, which in turn led to higher prices. This escalation not only affected the cost of sacrificial animals during the Eid al-Adha festival, but also contributed to an unprecedented global food crisis, as stated by the UN Secretary-General. The ripple effect didn't stop there. The higher food prices and overall economic instability led to soaring fuel prices, putting additional pressure on economies worldwide. But the Ukraine war was just one piece of the puzzle. As we shift our gaze to the Middle East, another conflict was brewing in Gaza. This conflict risked disrupting global oil supplies, a prospect that sent shockwaves through the international markets. Hedge fund titan David Einhorn warned that these international disputes could drive up fuel prices even further, potentially triggering a recession and inflation. His warning serves as a stark reminder that international disputes can't be dismissed as irrelevant for markets. They can and do have far-reaching impacts on economies and everyday lives. There was also the looming threat of a wider Middle Eastern conflict. Although the possibility of this conflict escalating to a point where it would cause a prolonged spike in oil prices was relatively low, the mere uncertainty of it was enough to keep the markets on edge. Despite previous conflicts in the Middle East having minimal long-term impacts on oil prices, the memory of the 1973 Yom Kippur War, which led to a Saudi oil embargo against the US, still lingers in the minds of many. So, we see how international disputes and conflicts can have a ripple effect on our fuel prices. The Ukraine war, the conflict in Gaza, the potential of a wider Middle Eastern conflict, each of these events, in their own way, contributed to the complex and volatile state of the global fuel market. How are economies responding to these changes? Let's take a look at the United States. The land of the free and home of the brave is facing a challenge of its own. The rising global fuel prices, spurred by international conflicts, are making waves in the US economy. The potential for a recession looms in the air, and the word inflation is on the tip of everyone's tongue. Hedge fund manager David Einhorn provides a stark warning that these conflicts, particularly in Ukraine and Gaza, could disrupt the global oil supplies and drive up US gas prices. This potential rise in gas prices doesn't only mean more expensive trips to the gas station. It could ripple through the economy, leading to increased costs for goods and services, and ultimately, inflation. In a country where consumers are already grappling with rising prices and increased debt payments, the threat of a recession feels all too real. But it's not just the consumers who are feeling the heat. The financial sector is also bracing for the impact. Einhorn cautions against dismissing these international disputes as irrelevant for the market. In fact, he's planning to buy stocks and distress debt if stock prices decline. This shift in investment strategy reveals a sobering reality. Uncertainty is the new certainty. It's not all doom and gloom, though. Despite the uncertain market outlook, some hedge funds have managed to swim rather than sink. Greenlight Capital, for instance, has reduced its exposure to the US consumer and increased investments in energy. This has allowed them to perform well, returning nearly a third of their value in the first 9 months of the year. While the US braces for a potential economic downturn, it also serves as a reminder of the interconnectedness of our global economy. The ripples of conflict in one region can create waves of change across the world. While the US braces for a potential economic downturn, what about other countries? How are they coping? Let's shift our focus to Kenya, a country grappling with high fuel prices. Nestled in the heart of East Africa, Kenya is feeling the pinch of the global fuel dilemma, just like many other nations. The high fuel prices in Kenya are a result of various factors, both local and international. Internationally, the conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East have disrupted global oil supplies, driving prices up. These elevated costs are then passed down to consumers in countries like Kenya. But the story doesn't end there. Locally, the Kenyan government has been battling to manage these soaring prices. This struggle is mirrored in the daily lives of Kenyans, where high fuel costs translate to increased prices for goods and services, further straining the already stretched pockets of many citizens. In response, the Kenyan government has employed a few strategies. They've sought to cushion citizens from the immediate impact of high fuel prices by implementing subsidies. However, this is not a long-term solution and is often met with criticism, as it's funded by taxpayers' money. Moreover, the government is exploring alternative sources of energy, such as solar and wind power, to reduce Kenya's dependence on oil. Such initiatives are not only environmentally friendly, but could also provide a more sustainable solution to the fuel price conundrum. Yet the road is long and fraught with challenges. The success of these measures depends largely on global dynamics, national policies, and importantly, the cooperation of Kenyans themselves. Clearly, the impact of global fuel prices is widespread, affecting countries and economies in unique ways. Let's summarize what we've learned today about the global state of fuel prices. It's clear that soaring fuel prices aren't just a localized issue, but a global phenomenon. From Ukraine to the Middle East, geopolitical conflicts have led to disruptions in oil supplies, causing price spikes that ripple through economies worldwide. In the United States, these price escalations have led to fears of inflation and potential recession, as voiced by hedge fund titan David Einhorn. Yet it's important to remember that the market is not entirely predictable. Case in point, JP Morgan's observation that despite concerns about the Israel-Hamas conflict escalating, it's unlikely to cause a prolonged spike in oil prices. They argue that demand destruction in several countries could balance the oil market beyond short-term geopolitical tensions. Turning our gaze to Kenya, we see a nation grappling with its own fuel price conundrum. Amidst already high fuel prices, the government is tasked with navigating the tricky waters of economic stability and public welfare. It's a juggling act that requires careful planning and strategic decision-making. But what does all this mean for you and me? Well, it's a reminder that the cost we pay at the fuel station is not just a simple matter of supply and demand. It's a complex web of factors influenced by geopolitical events, global economic trends, and national policy decisions. Next time you fill up your tank, remember the complex web of factors that determine the price at the pump. Until then, stay curious and keep questioning.